In this video, we are going to look at the rise and fall of Umbro. Umbro used to be the king of football. The best domestic and international teams used to be dominated by that logo. But now, it feels like they're a dying brand. So what happened? A quick background to the company. Umbro was founded in 1924 Wilmslow, England. The original name was set up as Humphrey Brothers Limited, but then shortly after gaining traction in the football scene, it was changed to Umbro. The first Umbro kits were actually worn by Man City and Portsmouth at the 1934 FA Cup final. In 1952 they'd go on to the Olympics, where they'd go on to supply the British Olympic team for the next 20 years. But just to show how big they were in the early days, Brazil winning the World Cup wearing Umbro in 1958. Ballon d'Or winner Denis Law signed an agreement to be the first footballer sponsored by Umbro. England won the 1966 World Cup sponsored by Umbro. By the late 60s, around 85% of British teams were getting the kits supplied by, as you guessed it, Umbro. The famous Lisbon Lions Celtic team won the European Cup in those kits. Liverpool won 4 European Cups wearing Umbro. And at the start of the Premier League in 1992, half of all of the teams in the Premier League, the kits were made by Umbro. This is a long-winded way of saying that in England in the early days, Umbro was fucking massive. But if you look nowadays, you'll struggle to find them on any top level football shirt. In fact, on Umbro's website, they only state they have 14 teams wearing their shirt. And most notable on the website, West Ham, Rangers, Fluminense. So well recognised clubs, but nowhere near what they used to have. So what is my first answer on this? Because something had to happen. And in my opinion, it was Nike. Nike happened to Umbro. The running shoe company of the 70s wanted to get more and more involved in football, and that's exactly what they did. But a few decades later, they acquired Umbro in 2007, and it's actually finalised in 2008 for around 285 million. Why did they take over Umbro though? And to be honest, I think the general consensus was that Nike wanted to become established in football. Of course, they had a lot of shirts in the 90s. I mean, the Borussia Dortmund shirt was very popular. And they had one of the best talents in the world in Ronaldo wearing their Mercurials. However, they weren't established as football heritage in the way Umbro were. During the takeover, Nike's CEO at the time, Mark Parker, actually said, "Football is the biggest sport in the world and continues to grow. Umbro's deep football heritage, combined with Nike's global reach, creates a powerful platform to accelerate growth in this key category." And you also have to think, just a couple of years earlier, Adidas took over Reebok, who had some decent roots in football already, and Adidas were Nike's biggest competitors at that time. But it wasn't just for credibility why Nike took over Umbro, it was for the England shirt. And if you are from a different country, why would you care about the England shirt? You're not going to buy it. But in England, they sell about 1 million shirts a year. And also, I believe they have a bit of a market in Asia from what I've read. And since the 60s, it has only been Umbro who made the England shirts, other than Admiral in the 80s. The England team and the Umbro logo just went hand in hand. And despite Nike's buyout, Umbro actually signed a 9-year deal to be the exclusive kit manufacturer of the England team. This was right after the takeover, so it should have helped Umbro solidify themselves and keep themselves essentially afloat. And you also have to think, the 2000s in England, do you remember what squad they had? I mean, we all do because it gets shoved down our throats, the golden generation. But if you just take those as individual superstars, David Beckham, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Wayne Rooney, Rio Ferdinand, even Michael Owen at the start of the decade. So naturally, we all just wanted those kids. But during that period, a lot happened with England and just the world, because in 2008, the historic financial crisis hit, right after the takeover of Umbro. So you have to think, if people have less money, are they going to be buying as many football shirts? And then to add to it, probably more devastating to me as a 10-year-old at that time, England didn't qualify for the 2008 Euros. So while my parents were panicking about paying the mortgage, I was fuming that we weren't going to a major tournament.
Because it was inconceivable to us that England wouldn't qualify for the European Championships.
Kit sales took a hit because the players aren't wearing them on the global stage. And then after this, even though we did qualify for the next 2 tournaments, you could argue it's the most pathetic era an England team has ever gone through. Some of the worst football, some of the worst players to ever wear an England shirt were in that period where Umbro had the right again. The company was in a tough period and Nike needed to save their investment and also save face. So in 2012, Umbro was sold to the Iconics brand group for around 140 million. That's less than half of what Nike paid for it only 4 years prior. It was a huge misstep from Nike, and it lost a lot of credibility for the Umbro brand. Umbro was football heritage, historic, a very humble, down-to-earth brand. Nike was exciting, it was all about creativity and more of a modern style. We can all be Captain Hindsight.
I'm off to find others in need! God bless you, Captain Hindsight! God bless you!
But the two were never going to combine well. Besides, it's not like Nike just dissolved Umbro and took over everything. There were two footballing divisions that essentially were competing with themselves. And then in 2013, unfortunately for Umbro, Nike then went on to acquire the rights for the England shirt, which was a historic thing because it's something that hasn't happened in, well, really forever, especially in my lifetime. They signed an initial 5-year deal and then went on to sign another longer term deal that is still going on and takes them to 2030. And obviously it's just luck at the end of the day, but you look at the England team, wearing Nike shirts, they have been to a World Cup semi-final, 2 Euros finals, and then another World Cup quarter-final. Had some of the best players they've ever had. The public reception of the England team has been at an all-time high over the last half a decade, and this has all been under Nike. But other than Nike's huge mistake with Umbro, I think there is another answer to this, and I personally think it's the globalisation of football. We can all argue when it happened, when football became a massive global game, but to me it looks like it started in the 90s because the Premier League and both the Champions League came in during this time. And it also was when celebrity culture was coming into the masses and global brilliant football stars were going from household names to A-list celebrities. And to me, this is where Umbro got slightly left behind. As previously said, they had half of the Premier League teams in their first season. At the end of the decade, Umbro only had 3 teams. That's huge. I mean, to be fair, they had Chelsea, Man United and Everton, so 3 very well-known popular teams. But it was just a sign of the times because more kit manufacturers were entering the market. Due to the size of the Premier League, a team was always going to just pick the highest offer, and more companies took the opportunity because there was so much money to be had in English football. And Umbro went from designing some excellent kits in the 90s to, and I hate to say it, using some templates. They used a lot of templates for different teams. It's ironic because I think modern Nike kits have suffered due to this modern template. I mean, it's laziness, isn't it? They know exactly what they're doing, it's laziness. In terms of Umbro, if you look in the 2000s, Chelsea kits and the Everton kits, you could get them mixed up because they look exactly the same. And before you say, well, Alex, it's a blue kit, they're not going to reinvent the wheel. Well, look what they did in the 90s. You can see they're completely different shirts with a completely different creative view. In my opinion, and I've said it over and over again, when these manufacturers start doing template kits that they just change the colour and the badge on, it's because they're so big that they think, well, people are just going to buy it regardless, and they get lazy, and then it hurts them later down the line. But also in England, with football becoming bigger and bigger, more foreign superstars were coming over, and with that, more influence comes over from different countries. So the humble traditional heritage of Umbro shirts were just becoming less appealing. I mean, let me ask you a question. What are your views, your connotation, your feelings around Umbro kits or just merchandise really? I grew up in the 2000s in England. We were all obsessed with football, but it did feel that Umbro were a bit of a cheap brand. They were a brand that you get passed down by your older brother or your cousin or even your dad. And I do think that Adidas, Nike, Puma, call it what you want, when you're 8 or 9 years old, there is a bit of a status to it, isn't there? And you want to be wearing the cooler brands, don't you? So when you see Nike and Adidas and Puma and all the rest of these companies innovating and just looking more modern and even futuristic at times, you don't just want to wear a t-shirt that looks like it's from the 90s, or some football boots, or a shirt that looks so old-fashioned. But regardless of that, I suppose when you get into the 2000s, losing Man United was absolutely huge in 2002. They were undoubtedly the best team in England, you could argue the world, in the 1990s. So you'd argue, well, they had a great decade, what is the issue? Well, in my opinion, they were the best footballing team in the world in the 1990s, but commercially, they boomed in the 2000s because, like I say, globalisation in the Premier League, it's completely changed from the last decade. And then Nike jumped on that by paying them £23 million a year, which by far their biggest kit deal, because with Umbro they were making about £8 million a year. And this is where Nike took Man United to America in 2003. They took them over on a pre-season tour, and it did just make all of these players in that Man United dressing room just global superstars. Look, someone would have done it eventually. Teams have gone into America before. I believe West Ham did in the 50s. believes Wolves did at one point in the 60s or 70s, but Nike used this to basically promote their kit and promote their partnership with Manchester United to one of the biggest markets in the world. Umbro didn't do this, and it cost them massively. Football boots though, because I'm just rambling on and on about football shirts. Football boots are also a market that Umbro are still in to this day. Let me ask you another question. Name me a player who wears a pair of Umbro boots. I tried to research it. I even went on ChatGPT. Sergio Romero apparently wore them for a bit. Harry Toffolo apparently wore them in the Championship, and then a few League 1, League 2 players. No notable player wears Umbro boots nowadays. For me, it's the connotation with these boots that just kills the brand. But it's star power. It always comes down to star power with football boots. If you haven't seen it, I did a rise and fall of football boots video where I discussed this, but Umbro didn't have anyone. Again, who buys most football boots? It's kids, and kids don't care about the comfort of boots. You care that you're pretending to be Lionel Messi or Ronaldo or Ronaldinho. And yes, in the 90s, Umbro had Alan Shearer, Michael Owen, Roberto Carlos. They had some brilliant world-class players, but as time went on in the 2000s and 2010s, they just couldn't afford to keep up with Nike and Adidas. The Iconics brand group just didn't have the same marketing spend as those two companies. They could never afford the high-profile players to wear and market their boots. Adidas had Lionel Messi wearing the F50s. Nike had Cristiano Ronaldo wearing Mercurials. If customers don't think any top player wants to wear your football boots, then they are going to think, why should I wear them? Along with this, Umbro didn't have a specific brand within a brand. Like I say, Adidas F50, Nike Mercurial, Nike T90s. I mean, as I said before, it's not a coincidence why Nike sponsored and gave Ronaldo the first signature boot. You see him wearing the boots, the sales are just going to come in regardless of what they look like. I can speak from experience, no one wanted to wear Umbro boots as a kid. I can't speak for people nowadays, but I know exactly when Umbro went downhill, and it was during my childhood, no one wanted to wear them. I mean, just look at the R10s in the 2000s for Ronaldinho. The Umbro offices would explode if Ronaldinho even stepped foot in the building. So are Umbro dead? No. They're not dead. They can't die, because what they did, especially in England with all the football shirts, people love retro shirts, so it'll keep that brand alive. And they still do have current big teams. They have West Ham. In Brazil, they have Fluminense in the Club World Cup, who are still in the tournament. And they do create solid shirts. They're just okay. Who complains about an Umbro shirt, really? But the heyday of Umbro is undoubtedly over. They had 3 World Cup winners wear Umbro. And to be honest, I'd be interested in 4 to 5 years. I could see there being 0 Umbro kits still made in the Premier League. Which is sad. Time has to move on. Nike are on a bit of a downfall at the moment. Adidas are on a bit of a high. But it all changes. But let me know what you think of Umbro as a brand. Do you wear them still? Did you used to wear them? Did you like them in the 90s? I mean, you tell me. If you could leave a like on the video, that'd be great. Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. But thanks for watching.